Before the roar of cannons and the cries of independence, Venezuela was the tranquil yet simmering jewel in the Spanish crown. Our story begins far from the grand halls of power, nestled atop a hill overlooking the crucial port of Puerto Cabello. This strategic vantage point was home to Fortin Solano, a colossal stone structure built not by revolutionary fervor but by colonial ambition in the late 18th century. It represented the unyielding authority of the Spanish Empire, silently guarding the key arteries of trade and supply. Its heavy walls stood as a declaration. The crown's presence here was permanent. This seemingly peaceful setting was the ordinary world, unaware of the seismic conflict about to tear the continent apart, setting the stage for a dramatic shift in global power and the destiny of a nation.
The year 1810 marked the call to adventure. The sparks of rebellion ignited across the Captaincy General of Venezuela, culminating in the Declaration of Independence. Suddenly, military control was not about distant battles in Europe, but immediate local strongholds. Fortin Solano, once a sleepy watchtower, transformed overnight into the centerpiece of the conflict. For the nascent patriot army, led by generals dreaming of a free Gran Colombia, capturing this fortress was not merely a military objective, it was a necessity for survival. As the royalists entrenched themselves, recognizing Solano's strategic value in receiving reinforcements and supplies from overseas, the fortress became the beacon of Spanish resistance, defying the patriots' grand vision for freedom. The stage for the ultimate confrontation was set, transforming the colonial watch into a wartime choke point.
The initial revolutionary fervor quickly collided with the harsh reality of Spanish military superiority. Fortin Solano embodied this refusal of the call. Early patriot attempts to consolidate power were often undermined by the daunting presence of these heavily fortified coastal positions. They were logistical nightmares, requiring immense manpower and siege expertise that the early decentralized patriot forces sorely lacked. The fortress boasted thick walls, numerous heavy artillery pieces, and an elevated position that rendered conventional assaults suicidal. The commanders knew that direct assault meant certain slaughter. This fear, this strategic hesitation, prolonged the war, turning Solano into a symbol of resistance that had to be neutralized, not merely conquered, before true independence could be secured across the mainland, a fortress that felt truly invincible.
The patriots quickly realized that brute force alone would fail. This realization prompted the meeting the mentor phase, where strategy and intellect replaced recklessness. Figures like Simón Bolívar and later José Antonio Páez understood that controlling Solano was essential to cutting the Spanish lifeline. Their strategic insight centered on prolonged siege, combined with controlling the inland cities like Valencia, isolating the fortress from local resources. They studied the fort's weaknesses, its reliance on sea supply, and its need for constant communication with Caracas. The leaders developed a sophisticated plan, utilizing local knowledge and innovative siege tactics, transforming the haphazard revolutionary forces into a calculated military machine capable of challenging the greatest military power of the era, proving that meticulous planning triumphs over sheer stone.
The moment the patriot forces finally committed significant resources to the region, they crossed the threshold. The area around Puerto Cabello became a permanent battlefield. The initial success came through controlling the critical city of Valencia nearby, but this only intensified the importance of Solano. If Valencia was the heart of inland Venezuela, Puerto Cabello, protected by Solano, was the Spanish lung, breathing in supplies and reinforcements. This period saw brutal localized skirmishes, not always directed at the fort itself, but aimed at disrupting royalist logistics, seizing surrounding hills, and cutting off fresh water sources. Every small victory was hard-won, a costly step towards establishing a stable frontline against an enemy that could endlessly resupply itself through the fortress's secure port access, making the threshold an ocean of blood and unwavering commitment. The years between 1813 and 1821 were the tests, allies, and enemies phase, a grinding war of attrition where Fortin Solano played its role as the ultimate spoiler. Whenever patriot forces gained a major foothold inland, the Spanish invariably utilized Solano as an unbreakable fallback point, quickly regrouping, rearming, and launching devastating counterattacks. Solano was the royalists' insurance policy. It tested the endurance and faith of the patriots. They fought not only the heavily armed Spanish garrison, but also internal divisions and the sheer physical toll of prolonged campaigning in the tropical heat. The conflict required immense perseverance, relying on local alliances and intelligence networks to counter the Spanish advantage. Solano stood sentinel over the fate of the Republic, mocking every temporary victory, ensuring that the conflict remained a brutal, protracted struggle for control over Venezuelan territory.
Leading up to the decisive climax, the approach to the inmost cave focused entirely on the sheer invulnerability of the fortress itself. Fortin Solano was strategically unmatched. Its design utilized the natural terrain, with sheer drops and layered defenses. The only approach was a grueling climb under constant fire. Patriot commanders meticulously studied the fort's every angle, identifying points of ingress, structural weak spots, and the rotation of the enemy guard. This was intellectual warfare, requiring precise intelligence gathering and the disciplined movement of heavy artillery into difficult positions. The fortress felt like an impossible beast, a stone dragon guarding the ultimate prize. The Patriots knew they were approaching the final, most dangerous layer of the royalist resistance, requiring absolute courage and flawless execution of the sophisticated, highly risky siege plan.
Following the decisive Patriot victory at Carabobo in 1821, Fortin Solano and Puerto Cabello became the ordeal, the final, desperate stand of the Spanish crown. General José Antonio Páez took command of the siege, knowing the fate of Venezuelan independence rested on this conquest. For 2 grueling years, the fortress resisted, surviving bombardments and failed assaults. The climax came in November 1823, when Páez led a daring stealth assault across the mudflats and through the rugged terrain, exploiting a believed weakness in the seaward defenses. It was a fight of sheer willpower, hand-to-hand combat within the walls. This battle tested the limits of human endurance, transforming the stone sanctuary into a hellish crucible of fire and desperation, defining the ultimate sacrifice required for freedom and ending Spain's dreams of reconquest. The surrender of Puerto Cabello and Fortin Solano in November 1823 was the reward, the seizing of the sword that completed the independence struggle. When the last Spanish governor of Venezuela formally capitulated, it marked the definitive end of organized colonial resistance on Venezuelan soil. This wasn't just a military victory, it was a psychological triumph felt across the continent. The seemingly impregnable fortress, the symbol of centuries of Spanish domination, had finally fallen. The strategic rewards were immense: control of the last major port, access to vital trading routes, and most importantly, the ability for the newly formed nation to turn its attention fully inward, to reconstruction, rather than constant external defense. The flag raised over Solano was the true confirmation of a free Venezuela. Following the victory, the nation entered the road back, using Fortin Solano to secure the newly won peace. Instead of being demolished, the fortress was repurposed by the Venezuelan government. It served as a critical defensive point for the new republic against possible reconquest attempts from Spain or other foreign powers. It shifted from being the enemy's lifeline to the nation's protective shield. However, the path back was fraught with challenges: internal political strife and the struggle to establish a unified government. The fortress, which had helped win independence, now stood watch over the tumultuous birth of the nation, a silent witness to the growing pains and political fragmentation that would soon challenge believers' grand vision of Gran Colombia, proving that securing peace is as difficult as winning war. Fortin Solano stands today as a testament to resurrection. It has transcended its origins as a colonial stronghold to become an enduring monument of Venezuelan perseverance and the harsh realities of independence. It physically embodies the sacrifices made by countless patriots who fought and fell within sight of its ramparts. The very walls that once resisted the surge of freedom now celebrate it. Its legacy is tied irrevocably to the most crucial military campaign in the nation's history, symbolizing the shift from subjugation to sovereignty. The fortress is more than just stone and mortar. It is a pilgrimage site, whispering the stories of the decisive final struggle, reminding every Venezuelan of the extreme lengths required to define and defend their nation's birthright against overwhelming odds and prolonged conflict, ensuring the heroic legacy endures.
The story of Fortin Solano is the story of Venezuela's final triumph, a critical moment where geography, strategy, and sheer determination converge to birth a republic. The fortress serves as the ultimate return with the elixir, offering the valuable lesson that true freedom often requires conquering the most daunting obstacles, literal or metaphorical. It reminds us that history is written not just by charismatic leaders, but by the strategic ground they fight for. Its role as the last bastion cements its place in history, a sentinel of sovereignty. If you found this journey through Venezuelan history compelling and want to explore more stories of strategic strongholds that shaped the modern world, please take a moment. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates. Your support helps us continue to unearth these epic tales and bring history to life.